This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
That's my way. Do it like that and I repeat. Don't be scared, I ain't afraid. Just like that, come my way. Just like that.
Hour 2 OverDrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Steve Phillips later in the hour. Jays losing again this afternoon. It's really ugly. And I said an hour ago, I think it's time. Alek Manoah, I think you got to skip a start. Like either find, I don't think you got to play someone in the IL, although
That's
you might have to.
That's the first step, buddy.
Find something. Yeah, find something. Say, you know what, quick stint on the IL. We're going to skip him. I understand there's not great options behind him, clearly. You don't love the bullpen as an opener option, but it's bigger than that. It's about trying to keep this guy, focused and in somewhat of a positive state of mind, because his stats are really, really awful right now.
Yeah, and
really,
there's going to
really
be some
poor.
honesty needed, too. If he's out of shape, someone's got to say, get your ass back in shape, or whatever it is.
Yep.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, there's got to be some honesty happening.
They know what it is. Like, they could see it, right? Like, he can't throw strikes. He's really struggling to get out of innings. He's walking a lot of guys like he did again today, and it's adding up. There's a lot of pitches being thrown. Like,
dude, there's no other way to talk about it. It's an unmitigated disaster.
Right.
That's
now
what
it is.
Yes.
Yeah. It's Barrios all over again. Like, it's that bad.
Don't you think Pete Walker, like, he's been through this with other pitchers, he probably just has a formula. It's like, hey, we need to take a reset. We need to do this. Like, a lot of times when players, we've seen it a lot, with hockey, if a guy is squeezing his stick too much or he's struggling, you start to take a look at the mechanics of their game. Are you getting to the middle of the ice? Are you doing certain things? Guaranteed they're going through that and saying,
of course,
let's start here. So you're right. It might start with a little, maybe a skipped start, a little IL where it's like, hey, let's get back to the basics here. Let's look at the mechanics, let's look at the delivery, how preparation, all of these types of things. Like, I think you'll be fine. I mean, you don't just forget how to throw the ball. It's a rough patch right now, but it's been an extended one. That's the concerning part, right?
That's the issue. Like, we referenced the stats Keegan Matheson posted.
Right.
Our buddy Keegan from MLB.com. Manoah ranks among the 72 qualified MLB starters. He's got the 5th worst ERA. He's got the worst whip, the worst walks per 9 inning, and the most pitches per innings pitched.
Wow.
Like, it's just worst. Like, it's Barrios. Yeah. It is. And that's how bad it is. And the guy is taxing the bullpen every time he's on the mound. And today, that second inning, he threw, I think, 40 pitches, and they've tried mixing it up, like who's behind the plate for him, right? They've already done that. They've tried that. And I don't know if it's mental, physical, probably a combination of both. But
yeah, when's Pete Walker get a tap on the shoulder? He must be kind of freaking out because he's had Barrios, he's had Manoah, he's had Kikuchi, and sometimes somebody takes the fall for this nonsense, and it's usually that guy.
Yep,
you know what I mean?
True.
Yeah,
that does happen when it gets ugly. Sometimes the hitting coach.
This is ugly times 3 now. It's ugly times 3, so it's
but
somebody usually has to chew on it, and it's that guy.
How is it the pitching coach's fault, though, if a guy's a gas can? Like, it's, is it some of the things that the pitching coach is talking about?
Sometimes when there's a bunch of injuries and the owner doesn't like it or the GM doesn't like it, the trainer gets gassed. That's just sometimes that happens.
Yeah,
I hope it doesn't happen.
When Rome
we all
is
like
burning,
Pete.
someone's response. They look to someone
right.
and say, "You're the one that has the gas can in your hand." Even if you don't, they'll find.
Right.
And listen, Schneider's in a tough spot here too, man. Like, John Schneider looks overwhelmed. It has not been a good couple of weeks for the manager.
No,
at all. And this team is not fundamentally strong. They're not. They're flawed. And they're not elite in any category. I'm not sure they're above average in any category right now. Like, this doesn't mean they're a mess of a baseball team. Don't get me wrong. This will flow over, and they'll start getting wins going again, and the mojo will be back. But it doesn't scream, a 93, 94, 95 win team. It screams if they can balance it out and get something going here, high 80s, and you're in the mix, right? Like that's kind of the glass half full right now because of the way the rotation, the bullpen, the bats, none of it is clicking, and they're getting smoked against their division. And that's a reality too. Like if you're gonna be a competitive team, you have to be competitive against your division. Got to be at least 500. They're 6-15 against the AL East. They started 4-2. They've lost 13 of 15 against the AL East.
Do you
that
think
is wild?
Do you think a trade or something could shake up? You know what I mean? Not enough, eh?
And they made the trades. They got Varsho, right? They signed Kiermaier. They signed Bell. Like Varsho, that's an issue right now. Gaby Marino's doing what he's doing. Gurriel's red hot, and he's a hot and cold hitter. He always has been. But Gurriel right now is red hot. Marino's a stud behind the plate. He's hitting well, and he's got a great arm. Like Kirk got stolen on 7 times.
That's insane, dude.
Insane. Like that's just, and guess what? The book is out. He's going to get to Minnesota. They're going to be like, we're going. Like we're going to challenge you. If you want, if you can keep us honest, go ahead. But we'll take an out or two if we have to prove that you can actually throw us out. It's an issue. So Steve Phillips in about 25 minutes. We got Craig Conroy coming up here in a moment. Craig worked with Brad Treliving for a long time.
Yeah,
right?
9 years, I think.
9 years, so he
GM
can
there.
probably speak to that. And as for the Leafs and their GM pursuit,
well,
it's tough to say when it's going to be concluded, but.
No, but you can give a view on the league as well, too. Here's a guy who's taking over. I don't know if you watched his presser or saw some snippets of it the other day talking about, the philosophy he'd like, some of the lessons he learned from Johnny Gaudreau leaving. He was quite honest about stuff like that. So, they missed the playoffs last year, but they've got the framework of a really good team there. So, Craig is he's going to put his positive spin on it and get to work. He's a hard-working guy, so see what he's got up his sleeve.
Yes, absolutely. And here he is, the new GM of the Calgary Flames, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Here's Craig Conroy. How you doing, Craig?
Good, guys. How are you guys doing?
Doing very well. Yeah, congratulations. Obviously, this is something you've been pursuing for a while. I'm curious, though, when you were a player, were you envisioning management? Like, how far back does it go where you thought, I could be a GM in this league?
It was weird. Even when I was thinking back after the last 12 years, even when I retired, like I said in my press, I thought maybe I'd do media, maybe I would do, coaching. And then, Ken King kind of sat down and said, hey, maybe you should try the management thing. And then I started working around and he let me do pretty much everything. And I'm like, hey, this is pretty fun. It's kind of like fantasy baseball, but with real people. So that's kind of the way it started for me, I think.
Well, Connie, I always thought you were going to be a coach based on the little group you guys had in the corner. It was yourself and Aginla and Alex Tanguay. You guys seem to run the dressing room anyways. So from a coaching perspective, some of the plays you wanted to implement. So I'm surprised that you ended up in the management side as well as the coaching.
Well, you know what? I mean, and it would have. I think it would. The one year I went down with Bob and was down coaching, it really did make you think maybe coaching's the way to go. But again, I'd moved my family so many times, getting traded back and forth. I think the one thing I knew there'd be a little bit more stability on this side, at least to let them get through school. So I think that's why I did it. But the coaching side, I love. I love going sitting down there watching. When they're drawing up plays and they're doing stuff, and I'll stay out of there, but definitely enjoy being down in the room for sure.
Connie, in your presser, you brought up some of the things that typically happen when a new general manager is signed with a team, talking about the environment, guys having fun. You got to enjoy coming to work. But when you get right down to the heart of it, next year you need some of your best players to play way better than they did. How do you approach that?
Well, I think even when we're doing the coaching search, maybe the frustration for me last year just watching at times when we had so many one-goal games, and you just want your top guys to be out there at the end of the game, maybe every other shift. You know how it is, Jeff. Like, you want those guys. They want to make a difference, but if they're not on the ice, they can't do it. And I thought some nights I'm like, they've only played 13 minutes. They've only, Huberdeau, Kadri, 12, 13 minutes. It's just, instead of kind of riding your horses, we kind of just went with a four-line going out there. And I know that's what Darryl felt comfortable with, and he's the coach, and that's what he did. And the games were always close, but I think we gotta really challenge our top guys to be better. And when I talk to them, they want that. They want to be challenged. They want to have an opportunity to be on the ice in those key situations. And there's nobody harder on themselves as Marky. So, Markstrom's, I expect you're going to see a huge bounce back from him. He's just laser focused when he left, and that's a good thing for us to see. Even though he knows it was a down season, he goes from a Vezina finalist, and it just was an off year right from the beginning. So he's a proud guy, and I expect him to be back to normal next year.
Connie, when you take over the reins, is it, touch base with your leadership core? Like, what is the kind of protocol? What has been your thought process early on to try and just, maybe have these conversations early on with your top players, the guys that you want to ride into success?
Exactly. Well, I definitely reached out to all of them. I either text some of them, but I try to call all of them. I've got a hold of some. I think they're playing golf. I don't know what they're doing, to be honest, Noodles. Or they're just not, they don't want to talk to me right now. But no, you know what? I wanted to reach out to all the guys just to touch base. And then, it's just been busy because we've had our amateur meetings here and settling in, and you're doing some interviews. You got a million phone calls. I think I had 400 texts and emails in the one day. I said, I don't even think I feel bad. I haven't gotten back to everybody yet, but I'm gonna try to catch up with that for sure in the next couple days.
We're chatting with Craig Conroy, the new GM of the Flames, and you worked alongside Brad Treliving for a long time, and now that Tree's moved on, you're in that role. I'm curious if you feel like you have to be different than Treliving. What kind of P's and Q's have you picked up that you might want to apply? How do you establish yourself as the man in charge, considering you've been there for a long time? Now you're bumped up and you got that much more power.
The one thing I think you take away from when Jay Feaster was here, Brian Burke, and then and Tree, Tree really had a great feel of what was going on around the league. He was always on his phone. He never felt like you missed out on a player. Hey, you're not going to get everybody, but he definitely knew what was going on, what the prices were for players, and he was. It was almost like I now I see why, because I've gotten so many phone calls. But I think the pulse that he has around the league was excellent. The way he treated his staff here was, we were all. We were just like one big family. He treated us with respect, and he let us be a part of everything. In the end, he's going to make some of those final decisions, and I'm assuming at some point I'm going to have to make those too. I haven't make any yet, but we have the staff here. He's implemented so many good things as far as analytics and what he wanted to do. And always we're trying to keep building on that. And that's the thing I said even in my interview. I'd like to keep building. We've kind of stayed maybe status quo for a little bit. Is there more we can do in some of these areas? And obviously with the staff we have here, I think that's possible. But you know what? Tree was a great boss, and I learned a lot. I don't know if I'm able to talk to as many people as he does, but I thought that was a huge positive for him.
Well, you spoke in your presser about you want players that want to be there, and you want to establish that. And I'm curious how you go about determining that. If you get to free agency and a player is willing to come up there, how do you separate? Okay, he wants to be there because of the contract that's available to him, which clearly we all know is a big part of this. It is a business. But beyond that, he's up there for the reasons you want him to be up there. Like, how do you go about that filtering of, knowing exactly what you're getting and why they're accepting, a job up in Calgary?
It's funny because, when you're just in and around guys and you're talking to people, like some people will just say, hey, these guys, other players will talk and they'll say, these guys love it up in Calgary. They would love, they're fishermen. They love hiking. They love the outdoors, and they're really good players. And you're like, oh, put that in my memory bank, and that's just from conversations with guys. So, sometimes that when you talk to them the first time, if you have to beg them to come, I think that's a problem. If you just have to keep overpaying, is he really here for the money, or does he really want to come and be a part of the Calgary Flames? So it is a fine line. It's not going to be easy, but I think, you really get a sense right away when, agents are pretty honest at times. They just, hey, my guy doesn't want to come. you will not come there. Okay, perfect. I do have some guys that want to come, and they'll give you names of people, and you just work through the process like that as you move along. But it's a learning curve. But you hope people are honest with you, and you have to kind of read through some of the the tea leaves there a little bit. But in the end, you got to feel what's right in your heart. If you feel like this guy really does want to be here, it's like Blake Coleman when he came. He wanted to come here. It's like, oh, and he's still coming back. He went home to Dallas, and he's going to come back for a little bit. And you're like, oh, he really does want to be in Calgary, which is great for us. You sign a free agent, and he wants to be here.
Connie, have you noticed a difference in the last, we'll call it 5 years or maybe even a little bit longer, in the shift of the way that the game is played and the philosophy? And everyone's got their own thought process of how you win in the regular season and now how it's being played out in the playoffs. Do you have in mind a way that you want your roster to be shaped and really the way that you want to play as far as what Calgary Flames hockey would be moving forward?
I think everybody wants an exciting offensive team that is sound defensively, it's easier said than done, but you want to make it exciting. I mean, it is it's for entertainment. You want people, especially our forwards and, across the league, you want them to come out and do what they do best. And that's bring people out of their seats, because they're making special plays. Because you watch in practice, they always do. You want them to bring that kind of attitude into the rink during the game. And you know what? I always said, if you make a mistake, we'll just back check. You just work hard coming back. I mean, you can't do it 4 or 5 times in a row, but every now and then to try to do something special, creative, do something outside the box. I think it's great for the game. I mean, you see the plays that are made around the league. If that ever happened when we played, though, there would have been 20 fights. So just nobody would try it. You're like, okay, we got to draw the line somewhere. But I think, overall we want to be sound structurally defensively. We want to make sure Markstrom's, we're going to give up shots, but we don't want to give all those cross-seam passes, one-timers, breakaways, 2-on-1s. I mean, I felt bad for Markey. Usually the first shot of the game, I know everyone talks about a lot went in. Well, they were breakaways, 2-on-1s, or high-danger shots right off the bat. He didn't even get into the game. So we got to limit that a little bit more, too, just to make it easier on him.
Well, it's going to be a wild offseason, and obviously you've mentioned, you guys are looking for a coach as well. Is that, the top of the list in terms of priority before the draft and free agency? What's the timeline like that for that role and in terms of your priority list right now, Craig?
It's high. I mean, it's right there at the top. We've been, you reach out, get permission from teams, and we're just doing that now. So hopefully that process will start next week, where we'll start to interview some coaches and move forward. And I don't know, I'm not going to rush it where I say, it has to be done at the end of next week. But, as we go through and talk to people and see, who we think is a fit here. And, we're going to do that as a group. The whole staff is going to be together, and we're going to go through. And, the one thing I think when you talk to people around the league, there's a lot of good coaches and a lot of young coaches. And I know even though I'm a young GM, I've got Don Maloney, Dave Nonis here, who've been GM in the league. So I'm not worried about having a young coach, just because it's a first-time GM. I just want to get the right person for the job and grow with that person. I want to be a team. I don't want to be his boss. I just want to be part of it. We're all a team here, from the players, coaches, and management. We're trying to do one thing, and that's win.
How many guys do you think you'd interview, Craig? Like, does it make any sense to just say, anybody, give me a call, and you probably got an idea who you want to talk to. Do you just tighten that up and get on with it?
Yeah, you came up with your first list. It might have been a little long, and then you cut it down. Like, who do we really fit that criteria, what we're looking for? And then we'll reach out to them. And, you might do, it might be 8, it might be 12 or 15, depending upon when we finally settle on a number. And we have to get permission from their teams, and if they want to do it. I mean, that's the other thing. I think, with all the jobs out there right now, there's going to be a lot of options for the guys that are probably interviewing. We're probably going to interview some of the same people as other teams.
Well, there's a lot of jackasses on Twitter that think they're coaches, so just stay out of that.
Yeah, close your DMs. I'll send you a DM. I'll come out there and interview. I'm one of those jackasses Noodles is talking about.
Noodles will be the goalie coach.
I'm
Hayes
not.
will run the power play, and I'll be the head boss.
Oh,
There
yeah.
you go, Craig.
Perfect. O-Dog's the head boss for sure.
It's an option. Just floating it out there.
Yeah,
Sleep on it.
It'd
Let
be
us
a
know how
fun
you
group.
feel. Yeah,
It would be a
absolutely.
fun group to be with.
Yeah, package deal. I'm sure you want to tie your career to the three of us. That would go over really well. He is Craig Conroy, the new GM of the Calgary Flames. Great catching up with you, Craig. Congrats on the gig. Good luck with it moving forward. Thank you for this.
Thanks for having me on, guys. You guys take care.
You got
Thanks,
it.
Connor.
Craig Conroy joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota. So, yeah, there you go.
He's a high
There you go,
energy
Craig
guy.
Conroy.
You know, he's
Yeah.
going to be a good manager because he really cares. Like, not that all the other managers don't, but you can tell he's a passionate guy. And I think he's got the right philosophy is, hey, we're all in this together. Like, it's not the hero complex as I'm the guy and everyone else has to kind of, listen to what I say. I think he's a real progressive guy, and I think he'll be a nice fit there. So,
And he
wish
knows
him
the
well.
place well, right? And they know
Yeah.
him. He was a really good Flame, and he's worked within the organization for a long time. It seems like a natural progression that
Yeah.
now he takes over. And I think if you're a Leaf fan, you're listening to that and what he had to say about Brad Treliving. And, there's this sense, and I understand it, that Dubas, because Dubas seems like a very likable guy. As much as, I don't know him personally. We've interacted with him a lot. Easy guy to like. And by all accounts, treats people really well, which should be mandatory, right? If you're
Standard.
managing people,
Yeah, it
should
should be.
be. But by all accounts, he was really true to that. And there's, a concern. Well, people are going to be upset, or people. You just heard what he said about Treliving. The next guy can treat everyone really well as well, right? It's not like it's
He's
going to
not
all
like
of a
the
sudden
only
be
guy.
a horrible working environment and so toxic because Kyle isn't around. I mean,
No, but I think that's people that are sad that they were fans and they thought he did a good job and they were sad. You can be disappointed in the way that it went down, but ultimately life will go on. And I agree. If it's Brad Treliving or somebody else that ends up here in Toronto, I'm sure there'll be a good GM as well. But Craig Conroy's got lots of work ahead of him. So does Brad Treliving or whoever takes over in
absolutely.
Toronto.
Whoever's the new
it's-
GM in Toronto.
There's
Yeah,
lots of work
and-
to be done throughout the league.
Yeah, and if Dubas ends up in Pitt, then the same thing will apply there. In fact, more work in Pitt, considering what's going on. And, this whole, agent thing, we'll get into it more, later this afternoon. Pierre LeBrun will join us about, Dubas being represented by an owner or by an agent from the Wasserman Group, which is the same talent agency that
Well, the
reps
problem with that
Matthews
is,
and others.
from my knowledge, I don't even think that's allowed.
Well,
I
that's kinda
honestly,
what it
yeah, I
sounds
don't
like it
think
might
it's
be the case.
allowed. So
yeah,
I don't know.
If we're spinning it, it's like, well, that agent's down the hall over there, so he doesn't talk to these people that are at the end of this hall, and you're like, okay, stop it. Like, listen,
Right.
there is collusion, there is backdoor conversations, but at the end of the day, if I don't know what can be done about it anyways.
No, I get that, Noodles, but it's something that I think is in plain English where it's not allowed. You know what I mean?
Did Shanahan know that when he let the world know that?
I don't know, and I
agent
don't.
had been
it's-
reaching out.
Yeah.
If that wasn't public knowledge, would the rest of the PA be like, "Oh, he's got an agent"? How would you know? I didn't
Yeah.
know Dubas had an agent. I know every player has an agent. I didn't know GMs did.
Well, I think GMs and coaches have agents too, because
Sure. You
you
want
gotta,
people representing you for the negotiations and
exactly, but
Makes
it's
sense.
I don't know, what can come of it. Realistically, you're sometimes you bring in an agent because you don't want to deal with somebody that you have to work with, and if it gets ugly,
Noodles,
then you're just
I
like,
get
hey,
it.
this
I
is
get it.
business.
I just talked to somebody at lunch today that said he talked to 2 other agents and said, that actually isn't allowed. That's all I know. That's all I know.
It is slightly fishy, we'll call it, but I mean,
wouldn't it be a good thing though for the players? Like this idea that, well, he's got my agent, so he'll hook me up. Wouldn't that be the sense that it would actually be? Shouldn't it be the Leafs that are like, wait a minute, you've been working with the same agent as the players? Like, shouldn't it be a beef from the league instead of the PA? I don't know. I just
what
it
does is it just creates all kinds of questions when it comes into what deals players get and what agents are. It causes problems, man.
Wow.
Obviously, it appears to be causing some problems. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, it makes no difference for what the Leafs are doing and what, like, this idea that this is piling on and makes it look so much worse. The Leafs they're not involved in this. That's Dubas and his people, and Dubas doesn't work for the team anymore.
Yes.
I thought it was more tied to that, is it the Wasserman Group? Is that what it's called?
Yes.
That Matthews is involved. Like, Matthews is the agent, and then there's Dubas there with his, like, it just, that's where I thought the angle was going. It's like,
I believe it is.
Yeah.
Like Judd Moldover, I believe is his name, is Matthews' agent.
Right.
And he's with the Wasserman Group.
Yeah.
So, like that one alone. But, again, Matthews got an unbelievable deal. Shouldn't the PA be happy about that? Like, why would they be rattled if he got hooked up and Dubas hooked them up?
Why would they send a red flag up on that?
Yeah, if anything, the league should be like, wait a minute, what the hell? You gave him 5 years? You walked him right to free agency? What the hell are you doing?
Exactly.
Like, you gave him 11-6? Crazy?
Yeah, that's
anyway,
true.
More on that in just over half an hour. Steve Phillips coming up. What are the Blue Jays going to do now? They lose again today. Manoah comes out after 3, got rocked. His stats are really not flattering whatsoever. Not a good scene for the Jays. What do you think Steve Phillips has to say about it? We'll find out next.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, so we've reached players-only meeting territory. That's happening down at the Trop. The old keep the doors closed, don't let the media in. And that's the go-to play, right? It's always the play. When you're in a bad spot, you're losing a lot of ball games, a lot of big ones, too. We're talking division games. They've lost 13 of 15 against the AL East. They just played the Yankees, the Orioles, and the Rays. They went 2-9. So not the best, right? Close the doors. Let's talk it over. Maybe that changes things.
The only thing that comes out of that, it's one of those things that happen, and the only possible positive that comes out of it is some truth can be told. But I have no ideas. I have no idea how players are these days because nobody likes to accept blame. Nobody likes to be criticized. It's not like back in the day where people would nod and say, yeah, you're right. I have to be better, or I need to lose 10 pounds, or I need to do this. Guys don't like accepting responsibility in 2023. It's never their fault. So,
well, it's someone's fault, right? Like their head is above water. They're still a game above 500, but they're chasing things and they're struggling right now. They are struggling in all facets of the game. And here is Steve Phillips, our TSN MLB analyst. It's tough finding positives with this club right now, Steve. The last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I just want to say, guys, I need to lose 10 pounds. I'm willing to say it.
Thank you.
I need to lose 10
Steve, me
pounds.
too,
Good.
pal. Me too.
I'm willing
Hayes?
to go there, okay? I'll do it.
5-pack.
Noodles,
5-pack.
can
Not
you
quite
lose
10,
5?
but 5.
I'll take 5 for sure. I can do 10. I would like 10. I feel
There's
like
30 for all of us
Well, I'll
combined.
take 10. There you go.
Yeah.
You know, wouldn't we all wish we were as fat as we were the first time we thought we were fat? Like, I'd sign up for that. I would take that in a heartbeat right now. I'd be happy to be that guy right now.
That's right.
But not the case. But yeah, tough. I mean, Manoah again. I watched him and I went back and looked at video last year, and it just doesn't feel like he's finishing his pitches. It's like he just sort of leaves his arm hanging out there, and he's out of whack. Clearly, they're trying to work on some mechanical things with him, and it's hard to compete when you're working on things, and which is why my suggestion was, and maybe it's radical, is to option into the minor leagues and get them back on track again and everything else. I just don't see him finishing pitches like what we've seen in the past, and it feels like he's kind of flipping the ball up there instead of really finishing every pitch that he has. And so I don't know what to make out of it all. He's not right. And obviously, out early in this one, and Tampa Bay took advantage. It just seems like every pitch float. It doesn't have a lot of life to it, and it just sits there in the middle of the plate screaming, "Hit me!" So they've got to try to do something to get him right. But they've got a lot of ills right now. And I wrote, the other night for .ca that after the 20-1 game that, hold on a minute, this doesn't cure all the ills necessarily. And, it was a game, it was a blip on the radar. But 10 runs against the position players doesn't mean that you fixed everything offensively. And so, then look, you run into the buzzsaw that is Shane McClanahan. There's no shame in getting beat by him, but he is the kind of guy that can put you in a slump for a couple of days. They didn't come up with hits today. They played sloppy today. And that sloppy play has been something that over the last couple of weeks has been prevalent. Buck Martinez told a story, and I don't know if you guys heard it the other day, where in spring training, Don Mattingly stood up in front of the group, and he said to everybody, would you be willing to do anything to win? And they said yes, and they said, stand up if you'd be willing to do anything to win. And they all stood up, and he said, okay. So at some point during the season, when the guy next to you doesn't hustle or he doesn't do what he's supposed to do, are you going to be willing to call him out? And are you going to be willing to be called out? Are you willing to do whatever it takes to win? You just said that, and at times that player-to-player accountability is going to have to be there. And so maybe this player-only meeting is something that they actually need to start to, call one another out. And look, I'm not big on pointing fingers. I'd rather guys point thumbs back at themselves, to be able to take accountability for their own performance. But I think if somebody's not willing to do it, then other guys do need to call each other out a little bit and understand they're accountable to one another.
Steve, you just laid out a lot of things from Manoah to the sloppiness to, the players-only meeting. If you're running that team, if you're Schneider, is there one thing that you could maybe just start with that could maybe help get the ball rolling? Is there one? Because it seems like there's 5 or 6 things that need fixing for the ship to be headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that George Springer's the answer. I think they go as he goes. I do. I think that he's not gone this year, right? He's not been able to get it going offensively. He's a really important piece in all of that. So I would start there and try to figure out what do we need to do to get him right. I do think that an abrupt statement would be made. Now, this is more of a front office move with the manager's support. But you option Manoah to the minor leagues, and it makes a statement not to Manoah. I mean, certainly to him, but to everybody else that you know what, that we're serious. This is about there are no scholarships. This is about performance, and we're taking this seriously, and we're going to pitch and play. The guys are going to help us do the best to try to win ball games right now. And if that's you, then show us you want it to be you. And if it's not, fine, we'll find somebody to do it. But I do think that, look, it's not a matter of them not caring. It's not a matter of them not really trying. It's a matter of execution. It's a matter of confidence. It's a matter of going out there and being focused and finding a way to be intense without being tense. And that's not easy when you're pressing and you're over trying. And, look, it's going to turn. They're going to rattle off, 8 out of 10. They're going to play some good baseball. It's coming. But, they've got to force it. And if I'm John Schneider, I'm forcing energy. I'm putting runners in motion the next game. I'm forcing hit and runs. I'm going to make guys put the ball in play. I'm going to make guys move and get some action going so that you're not waiting for something to happen, but you're making something happen.
Steve, back to Manoah. I'm curious to what your answer to this would be. If he went out and had a beer with his best friend, someone that he trusted his life with, and his best friend asked him, all right, give it to me. What the hell's going on here? I mean, are you out of shape? Are you this? Are you that? What do you think his answer would be if some truth serum was had and he had to tell his best friend in the world what the hell was going on here?
Yeah. I got to tell you that my gut feels like he's not completely healthy and he's trying to pitch through it. That something doesn't feel right. And he's going to try to keep battling and pushing through it. That would be his answer, that I don't feel quite right. My arm, my shoulder, my elbow, something's not right. Because nothing else makes a lot of sense with it. And when guys' arms don't feel right, what they do is they can change the mechanics because they think, okay, I'm not getting the same velocity. Let me create velocity. I'm not getting the same life, so let me really pull through that front shoulder and snap that slider. And so, my first thought and concern is health. Now, if he's healthy, if there's nothing like that going on, then I think I send him to the minor leagues. Then I think, dude, can you fix – I would say to him, can you work on the mechanical things you need to work on while going out there every fifth day and trying to win a game? Because you can't – if you're competing at the highest level, and you know this, you compete at the highest level, you can't think about how you're doing it and do it at the same time. You can't think about when am I going to let the ball go? Where am I striding? That stuff you've got to practice on the side where the result of it doesn't matter. And I think going to the minor leagues gives him that ability to catch his breath, go back down there, and look, here's the thing. I would even make a deal with him that it's for a finite period of time. If there's a concern about psyche or anything else, you say, look, this is what we're going to do, because you can option him and he could stay down there all year. The team has the control of that. But I would say, look, we want you to go work on these things, and we'll bring it back in 3 weeks, ready to slide in the rotation. We're not worried about results. We're worried about adjustments and process, and try to see if you can't get something fixed.
With Steve Phillips, our Jays and MLB analyst. So obviously that's not the only fire that they have to put out, is that the rotation is struggling right now. 3/5 of the rotation is largely unreliable, and Manoah in particular with some of the worst stats in baseball. He's throwing a ton of pitches per inning. He's walking a ton of guys. His ERA's bloated. It's a mess. Bullpen, though, not stacked. That's leaky at times. They're not getting big run production at big moments. Runners in scoring positions been a real problem, and they're sinking against their division. Like all of that. And then on top of it, you look at the catching position, and I'm concerned here, Steve, because Jansen now has got a groin issue, went for an MRI. It doesn't sound like it's going to be anything serious, but I doubt he plays this weekend. We'll see. That could change. And Kirk is really struggling at the plate. When you consider how great he was last year, he's nowhere close to that. And behind the plate, the Rays were 7 for 7 today on stolen bases. Now, part of that clearly is on the pitchers, right? But with these new rules, you can only throw over so many times. The bases are bigger. We knew this was coming. Ross Atkins knew it was coming. Like when you see a stat like that, 7 for 7 stealing bases. How do they get around this? How do they rectify that issue? Because when he gets behind the plate in Minnesota, the Twins are probably going to say, we're challenging him. Like, why would you not be stealing on this guy until he proves that he can actually keep you honest?
Yeah. So, so this is, I will say that Kirk not hitting, I think part of it is that he did not have a regular spring training. He was supposed to go to WBC. Then his wife was pregnant. Then he waited for the baby. Then he showed up late, and he didn't have his normal reps, preps, and everything else. And then he had a little hamstring thing, and so he wasn't quite right. The stolen base thing, that's on the pitcher. That is on Manoah primarily. And then Simber, think about Simber. If you're a runner on base, for Simber to get down under like he does, right, his body, the ability to throw over to a base, as soon as he starts to bend, you can go. And so, both those guys, I think, are just guys that you can run on. And the Rays had that pegged out. Manoah is slow to the plate. In fact, his arm is slow. Everything's slow right now with him. There's no quick twitch to anything that he's doing right now. And so I don't put that on Kirk. I really don't. I think this is a pitcher issue that they need to work on with Manoah. Another thing to work on with Manoah. And the thing the Rays do is that whatever weakness you have, man, they exploit it. Like, they just completely take advantage of it and gain that advantage. Their guys are prepared. They're ready to go. They knew coming into this game they were going to run on Manoah and Kirk, primarily Manoah. And then Simber, same thing. You think about that submarine pitcher. And so I think this is it. But they do need to get him going offensively, because he's a big part of what they were hoping for. That if they caught Jansen, they were hoping Kirk could be a guy that could even DH some. Right. And he's certainly not that right now.
No, he's not. No, he's not. And there's not much.
No, he's not. No, he's
not.
The
truth. But Jansen's been good, but Kirk is an issue. Like, you can't even DH him at this point. And I hear what you're saying, and that was evident today. Like, Manoah, as you said, like, his mechanics would suggest you maybe run on him. But I think a part of that, too, is he's just so caught up with just trying to throw strikes. He can't even think about a runner, right? Like, it's just it's so far gone.
You got to get him out of major league game.
Right.
As a general manager, when the team's winning, I don't need to be out in front and center. I don't need to be anywhere. As a general manager, when your team's losing, you need to be front and center so that you're the one answering the questions, and the guys in the uniform can catch a little break from that. And I'm the one answering it, and I'm the one that is dealing with all of the, the criticism and all of that, trying to take some of that burden away. Certainly the manager's got to do it, but trying to create a positive atmosphere, trying to make sure the players understand that nobody's giving up on them. You got to remain positive. This team's a really good team. This team's a 90-plus win team from a year ago. They're better than they were then. They've got to get themselves put back together. You're patting Manoah on the back. You're getting with, and then with the coaches, the coaching staff. What I did is I played devil's advocate. I would question and challenge, behind the scenes with them. What are we doing? What are we thinking? All right, if this is what you're thinking, then why does he keep doing this? And here I may agree with them, but I would keep challenging the thought process so that we would find something that maybe we hadn't thought of yet. But publicly, you're just there patting everybody on the back and trying to support both the players and staff.
Yeah, and I can reason with that, and I think you're obviously you would know from your experience. But then, the manager is really at the forefront of a lot of this too, Steve. You mentioned what the Rays do so well, and that's cash. Yeah. Like, he knows. He's like, this is what's coming, so we got to hit it. How is Schneider not aware that that's coming and making adjustments? Like, how is he not? It doesn't feel like he's got his finger on the trigger here much recently. Like, he's had a couple of bad look moments the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, he has, and he's a rookie man, he's a young manager, and you're right. And he's going through something that he's never gone through before as a manager. Maybe at the minor league level a little bit, but this is different. And he does have a look on his face like he's searching for what to do. And, it's awfully hard to hold people accountable for mental errors when you make one yourself, right? Yet, the way you handle that is important. Because, look, during the course of a season, every single person in uniform, trainers, clubhouse people, coaches, managers, players, they all do something selfish. They do something stupid. They do something wrong. And how that accountability is managed is really what becomes the chemistry of the team. And it's, because everybody's going to do it. And, depending upon who it is, there's a different level of response to it. And, for guys who are like, oh, man, I really screwed that up and are already hard on themselves, nobody needs to jump on them as long as they're acknowledging what they're doing. But there's got to be that ability and willingness for guys to handle their mess-ups, including the manager. When you go in and say, look, that was my fault. I messed that up. I take responsibility for it. That won't happen again. That was, and then look, that was on Schneider, but I also put that on Don Mattingly, the bench coach. I mean, if he's going out there, you got to at least know whether he's going out there to make a pitching change. And I think what happened in that moment was Schneider went out there maybe with the thought that I might change, but he wanted to rah-rah Manoah in that game, try to get him to, muster up something, show him some confidence to stay in, and then walk off, not realizing that Pete Walker had already been out there.
Yeah. Either way, it can't happen. I mean, whatever the reasoning is, can't happen. But we'll see. Jay's off to Minnesota now this week for 3. Then a day off, much-needed day off, and then back home against the Brewers next week. Great stuff, Steve. Have a great weekend, buddy. We'll do it again soon.
You bet it, guys. Good to talk to you.
Steve Phillips, our TSN MLB analyst. Jay is losing another one today. And, that Rays team, they've been doing it to everybody. They've been doing it to everybody, and they're a really good team. What are they, 37,
not a lot of flash and dash
now?
there. There is a little bit sprinkled in, but it's Kevin Cash way, man.
Yep.
Just solid.
Yeah, you look at the numbers they're putting up, like offensively, they're first or second in every major category, but it's just balance, right? It's just like everyone comes up with a game plan. They work counts. They move runners when they can. They take advantage of every possible situation.
Yeah, and it seems like they lose a couple of guys or one guy every offseason to a big market team, and they just keep on trucking.
Keep trucking. Yeah, like they've got injury issues in the rotation. They've had problems, like things that have flared up that the average team is going to have, and it hasn't slowed them down. Yes. And the Orioles have been really good. The Yankees have been better recently. The Jays they're in one, man. They're chasing the division right now, and it's not great, but it's only May. Like, that is the one thing, the glass half full they have going for them. They got over 100 games left to be played. Got to straighten things out. We'll see what comes of it this weekend. Pierre LeBrun, our TSN hockey insider, still to come. Richard Griffin, our buddy Griff, coming up around 6:30. Get his take on the Jays and where they're at and where they're going. We're tracking Michael Block down at the Colonial as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
So I'm getting a little concerned about our boy Michael Block, friend of the show.
Yes.
Right, the most famous club pro in the world.
Dude, he's getting the Tiger Woods treatment. It's like, stop doing that to him.
Yeah. Well, he's now 5 over through 13.
Yes.
He's almost dead last. And he likely finishes the day last in the tournament. And
Right, and there's some good guys on the course. Like I get it. It's what everybody. It's the treat of the day, whatever you want to call it. But you can't keep putting them on the TV. Like, there's quality guys out on the course. Stop it.
And at some point, he's probably going to say, "Guys, come on! Like,
Please don't
I'm
do it to me."
chunking balls, sculling balls. I'm hitting balls off a bridge. Literally, that just happened. Like, he doesn't want cameras following him on a bridge. You know,
Hitting a ball off a bridge like that.
there goes his ball. It's on the bridge.
But, dude, I knew he could not contain himself. He's taking pics walking down the fairway. He's on the bridge right there.
That was a club pro guy swing. Did you see his leg action there? It was wild.
But, dude, he's taking pics. I'm just like, just go out there and tee it up, man.
He's enjoying the moment.
I
let
get
him,
it.
let him
He knows.
enjoy it.
He's not self-aware because, you know, I believe he said with a straight face, if he had Rory's length, he'd be a top 5 player in the world, basically, which is nowhere close to self-awareness. But he should be like, hey, I'm living a dream here. In a few weeks, that's going to be over, and that'll be it, right?
Yeah.
That'll be it because he is who he is.
He's exempt here. He's going to play at the Canadian Open. And then if he chops it up there, someone's going to say, maybe no more.
Right, that's
Maybe.
possibly enough. We'll see. Maybe he gets out of this. He's still on the course, right? I'm rooting for the guy, but
Yeah.
this
So
is
am
why
I.
everyone
So
was
am
like,
I.
he's not going to make the cut. Everyone's like, putting money down on him to make the cut. The books, FanDuel knew what they were doing. Final hour coming up. Pierre LeBrun will join us. Richard Griffin on the state of the Jays. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.